This week on the show Columbus, actor, writer, and producer Chris White.
First, I want to thank you for bringing Electric Jesus to Columbus.
Sure.
There are a lot of questions that we have for you, but so first, Electric Jesus is a musical comedy, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the music
Okay.
on Electric Jesus.
So the film is set in the summer of 1986.
Mm-hmm.
It's about some friends. They're kind of like church friends. They're in a youth group at church together, and they start a Christian heavy metal band called 316, and they go on the road for the summer, and their goal is to see if they can open for Stryper. Have you ever heard of Stryper?
Yep.
That's a real band.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so the music in the movie, there's a lot of music in the movie, but a great deal of it is hair metal,
Awesome.
like 80s
rock opera kind of maybe.
Well, I mean, just like arena rock, like Def Leppard, like AC/DC,
Mhm.
like
Cool.
Van Halen, those bands of that era, and Stryper.
So, are you collaborating with a composer
Yes.
on this music?
Yeah, so I wrote the screenplay for the movie, and at the places where there needed to be songs, I would write the words to the songs, trying to put myself in the mind of the characters writing a song. And then I, several years ago, I met an incredible guy. His name is Daniel Smith. He's probably known best for his work in a band called Danielson. It's and they were kind of like a 90s alternative band. And Daniel's has a lot of fans. Incredible history. There's a documentary about him called Danielson. I think it's called Make a Joyful Noise, Danielson. So you can look it up and see that, and it's about them touring.
Is it Ben Folds 5 too, or Ben's Fold? What did you
No,
say?
it's not.
No?
It wouldn't
No?
sound like that. Daniel's music is very strange. Ben Folds' music is almost like a musical or Broadway
Yeah.
or piano pop. You know, Daniel's music is a little bit more offbeat. But for this, Daniel's music, he wrote these rock songs, and then he will also do the score for the movie, which is a little bit more maybe like you would hear a movie score.
That's exciting. I mean, everything about that, because it's so organic and raw. It's new. It's something that you don't typically see, and I'm just really happy to be a part of it.
Well, so when we started working on the film, I knew that we had to have music,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of movies that I love that are rock and roll or
Yeah.
band or music movies. And I started doing research. You know, where did the songs come from? How did they write songs? And most people know the film This Is Spinal Tap that Rob Reiner directed.
Yeah.
And all those songs were written by the guys that play the parts in the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's one approach you can have to it. I'm also a huge fan of the movie Once, John Carney's movie Once. And that he cast a really great singer-songwriter, Glenn Hansard, and they used Glenn's songs in the movie. And then my favorite rock and roll movie ever is called The Commitments by Alan Parker. And for that movie, that was made in the early 90s, the band just played kind of roots rock and roll R&B kind of stuff. So they just did
Right.
cover songs.
Cool.
So there were so many different ways that people have approached making music movies, and it became clear pretty soon that my music movie would have to have original songs.
Right. So the cast, are they musicians or were they a band already, or how'd that
Okay,
come
no.
about?
So the band in the movie, there's 4 young men that are playing teenagers. There's also their sound man and a girl they meet along the way. So there's 6 leads, these actors, and they're from all over. Utah, Indiana, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Georgia. Kind of come from all over, and they've come together for our movie. Half of them are pretty accomplished musicians, singers, instrumentalists, that kind of thing. The other half are not so much musically inclined, but all of them are great actors. I mean, really good actors.
So they practice these songs that you already have made.
Yeah. So how it works is the young man who plays the lead singer in the band, he's actually singing the songs, and the young woman who's playing the girl they meet along the way, she's actually sings the songs. We've already recorded those.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's so
The
cool.
instruments, drums, guitar, bass, the instruments that are played by studio musicians, and so they will the musicians will sync those. You know, they'll play like they're playing.
Yeah.
But one of the unique things we're doing in our film, which I got the idea from The Commitments, that movie, our first take when we do a music scene, Wyatt Leonard, who plays Michael, the lead singer, he will sing the song live in the room. So we'll play it back. He'll sing it live. We'll record it, and then we'll add it to the music mix, and then we'll kind of, if you're a filmmaker, coverage is the way we refer to how we shoot everything, all the shots we take, right?
Yeah.
So we'll start our coverage very close. We'll record his vocal live, and then our coverage will move back from there. So we'll do the close first, and then the longer shots second.
Cool.
Normally in film, most people shoot the big shots first, and then they move in. We'll kind of do it backwards on that.
A lot of magic gonna be happening.
I'm really excited to see you guys work. This is actually something that we were on another movie set, and I had kind of said something to Ginger about it. There's I'm writing a documentary about Columbus, and there's a band called Jesse and the Rockers, and they have this story that you're writing a movie about. They were a punk band in the 90s. They got signed to an indie label. They did 2 albums, toured all over the place, and they're right here from our town. But making a Christian type comedy.
Oh, really?
Because I'm one of those, I love working on these faith-based films, and I know this one is kind of like that borderline sort of thing, but when it comes to Christianity, sometimes things are tough, I mean, you're right there on that middle ground, especially if you're in the rock world, and I've gotten to do some different stuff, and you're in places that you're not quite sure if you're supposed to be there, or maybe I have a reason for being here, and there's a message I'm supposed to say. So I'm really excited to see kind of where you're going with this. And I was one of those that I was listening to the Motley Crue, but I had a group of friends that were listening to the Petra and the Stryper, and I'm going, man, I wish I could hang out with those guys, but I'm just too messed up, And then later years became that guy, and loved the Stryper and the Petra and those things.
Well, it's peculiar, and it's unique to the Christian faith. I don't know that there are other religious traditions that have pop music, like metal or rap or whatever, and it's very prevalent in the Christian faith. And I think I know why. It's because, one, Christians sing a lot, and music's a part of Christian worship in a major way. And even nowadays, at most churches, the music is not just organs and pianos; it's drums and guitars, and so pop music is part of Christian worship. But the other thing is, especially in evangelical Christianity, evangelical meaning the brand of Christians that are want to persuade you to believe what they believe. Okay, so we want to help you find Jesus, right? That's evangelicals. They have traditionally in the United States been very aggressive and interested in the arts. They've wanted to communicate in the language of the culture. And this has been 100 years. It's been like this in Christianity. They say, we want to persuade people to be Christians, so we want to speak to them in a language they understand. And so with Christian music, Christian pop music, Christian rock music, which really came of age in the late 60s, early 70s, that was Christians saying, we want to tell people about Jesus, but we want it to sound like rock and roll.
You wanted to make it cool.
Yeah.
That's why they're targeting that generation that listens to that type of music.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I can remember
and this is going to show my age. When I did radio, I actually did Christian radio station.
Did you?
And I did, and
Okay,
it was
cool.
at the tail end of the Striper, the hairband era.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it went more into the pop era. You started
Mm-hmm.
hearing artists like Brian Duncan that
Oh, yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
you know jumped up, and of course it I could go on, and I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just really neat because you noticed that the style of worship just did a 180, because it was probably a decade before that. If you played anything other than what was in a hymnal, you were a devil.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's it just, when Striper came along, I think that was the thing that just changed it all.
They were, Stryper and Amy Grant, I believe this is still true, are the most commercially successful Christian music acts of all time. Now, the Christian music industry changed in the early to mid 90s, where it kind of went in a way where there's now what we would call Christian music is more worship music. Like if you listen to the words, it'd be like worshiping God kind of words,
Yeah.
I guess. And then a lot of artists who are Christians now, they don't really make Christian albums. They're not really
Right.
Christian. They just make music.
Well, there is a band called Family Force 5. Have you ever heard of them?
have,
Okay,
yeah.
so they won for pop, right? Or was it rock? I can't remember. But they were a Christian band. They played here. Did you ever
There's
see them?
there's lots. I mean, maybe the most famous
Yeah.
band that would be U2. The members
Yeah.
are Christians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've presented themselves as just a regular
Just-
rock band.
yeah.
They're one of the most popular
Uh-huh.
bands in the world. But
Yeah.
the members are Christians, and they would say, yes, we're Christians, but our music is not really meant to evangelize. The point of the music
Right.
is not to get people saved. It's just to communicate about life and art. And so
Talking
that's
about
right.
those things.
Yeah, but that it doesn't change that they have a faith. They believe in God, that sort of thing. So the band in our movie is specifically a Christian band trying to get people saved. That is the band in our movie.
That's their mission.
You know what? In
That's
bands
cool.
back then, they really had a kind of a twofold. I don't want to say problem, but not only did they have to put forth their music, but they had to fight the way that people viewed their music, and it was really kind of an interesting time.
Well,
Truly
it's
was.
it's happening to those of us in film, who,
Really?
believe it or not, who well, this is, this isn't a complaint. It's the challenge of what we're doing with Electric Jesus. We see the movie as being valuable to everyone. I'm trying to make a great rock and roll movie. I want to make the best rock and roll movie you've ever seen. That's what I go into work every day to do. I'm not trying to make a quote-unquote Christian movie or a faith-based
Right.
movie, okay? But I'm respectful of the character's faith. I myself am a person of faith, so I'm interested in that. I like that. I want that. But the goal of the movie is just to show you a good time. Now, when you're raising money for movies, it's very interesting what happens. If I'm raising money for a movie, everybody I meet wants to, if they're going to invest money in your movie, they want to make it back. So I can have that conversation. My wife Emily and I think, do a pretty good job of showing why Electric Jesus will make money.
Right.
Hopefully a lot of money.
Right.
Okay. But then sometimes we talk to people who are very devout people. They're potential investors. They may have money. They may have even put money in movies before, but they're Christians, and so they're very concerned about. I've been told that the title Electric Jesus is a little sacrilegious. That I don't know. What do you mean by Electric Jesus? Is that a little sacrilegious? And to those people, I say the movie is part Jesus and part electric. It's actually the perfect time. I mean, part of it's rock and roll,
that's the
part of it's
truth,
Jesus.
and we're sticking to it.
There's a deliberate tension in the movie that's between those two things, right? And those conversations usually go pretty well, right? At the same time, I have people that encounter the movie who aren't Christians at all. They're like, hey, this is not some stupid Christian thing, right? It's like, well, there are Christians in the movie.
Yeah.
They aren't stupid.
Right.
It's a good movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a rock and roll. Yeah, but it's Christian though, right? It says Jesus in the title.
Yeah.
The characters talk about Jesus all the time. Are you trying to save me or something? It's like, No, I'm not trying
yeah.
to save you. I'm
Maybe
just trying
the
to.
comedy will win them over.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
way.
It's just when you're in our position, we have meetings with people. We talk to people about the movie, and we get both. Like people are
Right.
saying, "This isn't Christian enough," and
Or-
then "This is too Christian."
Yeah.
So usually what I say is that means we're doing something right. We're
Right.
getting it right in the middle. Yeah.
Right. I'm excited. I mean, everything that I've heard about it, because whenever you do throw the Christian aspect in there, then you do kind of people seem to run a risk, especially whenever it's making a movie. But there's a lot of people like me. I probably wouldn't have. I know back in the '80s, paid attention to anybody talking about Jesus at the time because I was not on that path. But Sam Kinison came into the picture, and then all of a sudden, then I find myself being interested,
Yeah.
And I was talking about this the other day with Sam Kinison. Pretty much 95% of the people that were in the video Wild Thing all found recovery, and they relate it back to Sam Kinison because Sam Kinison at the end got sober and he got resaved and all of this stuff. And 90% from the Billy Idol to the Slash to all of them, and it all references back to that. And when you were talking about Stryper, I was thinking about a documentary that I saw about the Sunset Strip, and Motley Crue started talking about Stryper. They said they would be outside. Their place was right down from their house, was right down from where the wherever it was that they all played. Yeah, it was on Sunset.
The whiskey.
Yeah, the whiskey.
Yeah.
And so Stryper would play the whiskey, and Stryper would come up in a limo, and they had their, yellow and black Attack stuff on, and they're like sitting out there messed up going, we want to be like those guys.
Yeah.
And how much that band, Stryper actually does have with the credibility of the rock and rollers in, for the Motley Crues, the Guns N' Roses, and things like that.
Yeah, we've been able to spend some time with the guys in Stryper, a little bit of time
saw
with
that.
them. And I'll tell you this, and we're using 2 of their songs in the film. The band covers a song by Stryper, and then we play a song by Stryper that everybody lip syncs to in a scene in the movie. They are true artists. They're great rock and roll guys, and they have the chops to prove it. I saw them play live recently. They're amazing. They were on the Sunset Strip at the Whiskey with people like Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Poison. They earned their position there, right? But at the same time, they didn't look like the Southern Baptist kids of my movie. But they were living a life that I think most of those Southern Baptist people would have been proud of. They were not
They had
not
that
like
same
they didn't
faith.
have the groovies and the drugs and stuff that other bands had. They were really true. And when I started the project, I kind of assumed that I'd run into a lot of phonies, a lot of charlatans in Christian music that maybe were putting faith out there as a way to sell records, or I just didn't find that. I mean, pretty much, with very few exceptions, I found that the people that declared themselves to be Christians were actually, not only were they moral just in their interactions with other people, but they were moral about their business dealings. They were moral about their, the way they were polite, they were kind. The excesses that plagued a lot of the 80s rock and roll, that wasn't so much the case for the Christian artists, which I thought was kind of cool.
But back in the 80s, there was more excess and pretty much evangelist period
Yeah,
than
like
there was in rock
Jim
and
and
roll.
Tammy
Yeah,
and
Tammy
yeah,
Faye.
the stuff we saw on TV, the TV evangelist was way worse. I'll tell you this: Michael and Robert, the drummer for Stryper, Michael Sweet is the lead singer, guitarist, and then his brother plays drums for them. And their mom went on the road with them. She was kind of like, I think, the tour manager or something. She toured around with them, and a friend of mine who spent some time with them on the road said, yeah, they'd go into an arena to play a show, and before the boys even got there, the mom had the guys take the doors off the dressing rooms because they didn't
they
want
could
them to
see.
be alone with groupies that
Yeah.
might come in there, and then there'd be rumors about Stryper and so. I mean,
Right.
they were very
Pictures.
they were very watched,
Yeah.
I should say, and
Yeah.
kind of kept from some of the excesses.
Where are they from? What part of
Los Angeles. They're from
Oh,
California.
yeah. I was thinking maybe.
And you know what? Before we switch gears, as far as to talk about some other things, I'll say this: if you ever want to watch a movie that kind of shows you, I guess, the things that go on behind the scenes in evangelical Christians, watch a movie by Steve Martin called Leap of Faith.
Leap of Faith.
I just watched it. I just rewatched it.
And it
Yeah.
will pretty much. I mean,
That's
it's
a
funny.
really interesting movie, because in that movie, Leap of Faith, a lot of famous actors are in that. Liam Neeson's in that. Philip Seymour Hoffman, Deborah Winger. A lot of people are in that movie. But it really deals with a phony, a guy who's a fake Christian, who confronts people that actually believe, and he's faced with this thing like, wait a minute. I'm cheating these people. He's faced with that crisis of faith, and then something miraculous happens that he can't explain. And he's kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on here? But no, I will say this about our film, Electric Jesus. The idea of the film, and you can take away from the movie, when you see the movie, have fun with it, decide what it means for yourself. But a lot of the big idea in the movie that I'm pursuing is this idea of how can you redeem, using a Christian word, nostalgia. Nostalgia, to me, is not good or not helpful. It's fun, but it's not helpful. Nostalgia is about feelings for the past that have no value other than making you feel sad or momentarily happy, or they don't do anything for you in your life. I think of nostalgia. I hear a great Hall & Oates song that I used to listen to on a 45, and I feel warm for a second thinking about that song, and then I just go back to my life, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking, well, we all, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm in that part of my life where I'm remembering things from the past, and nostalgia creeps up on you at weird times. And I'm like, but what use is this? How is this helpful now? And that's really what Electric Jesus ultimately is about. It's about thinking about the things you believed and the kind of person you were when you were young, and the things you loved when you were young.
Yeah, kind of like a time capsule.
Yeah,
thinking
and
of
like,
that era.
can you, I'm not going to be a child again.
Yeah.
That would be silly.
Mhm.
But were there clues in my past
Mhm.
to something for Chris right now?
Right.
And so that, in that sense, I think you can watch Electric Jesus, and you can say, oh yeah, I lost my faith, so I want to get my faith back. But you could also watch Electric Jesus and say, I want to get my buddies back, my friends back. I lost that.
Redemption, a
I want to get that girl back that I
Yeah.
lost so long. There's lots of things that I think we've lost that
Yeah.
maybe it's just a dream you had when you were a kid. I always thought my life would be like this. I always thought I would do this with my life, and now I'm here at this crossroads, and I feel a little lost and confused and maybe even sad. Well, what did 15, 16-year-old me, what was he or she dreaming about?
Right.
And can I,
Yeah.
maybe that's a clue to something that'll help me now.
So were you kind of working on the screenplay since that time, and then just recently wrote it all out?
Well, the way screenplays are written, so part of a screenplay is the big idea when you just sit around and think about it. But the actual writing of a screenplay is actually very technical, depressingly technical, horrifically technical. You just have to crank out pages.
Yep.
There's pretty much, you create an outline, and then you have to write
Yep.
scenes, and then the characters have to be good, and so this film, I think I wrote the first draft of it maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it was pretty different than it is. And then this weekend, I'm actually doing the pink draft. This weekend will be another revision to the movie.
Okay.
That will be happening this weekend. And so I'm still writing on it. And then when the actors get here and we start shooting
Yeah.
it, there's more writing that happens.
Right, and the music too, the songs.
Yeah.
That is so cool, I think.
Yeah. So the writing process goes all the way into edit. Editing is another time we write the movie.
Yeah.
What is is it working?
Do
I
we
don't know
really
if this
need to
scene-
have that
Yeah.
in there?
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind if you need any assistance in writers, we have a lot of songwriters in this area.
But there's a whole history of South Georgia and music, and and Alabama. I mean, this is
We've got a lot of Christian songwriters right here locally that moved on to do some pretty extraordinary things. I hope that you find out while you're in Columbus that you turn the corner and you just meet these really
Yeah.
weird offbeat people all around. Like,
Well, I've definitely met some weird offbeat people. Most of them through Ginger. So. No difference today. No difference
Ginger
today.
attracts them. I don't know.
So when you were at Sundance, that's when you came across Choose Georgia. When you were at Sundance, did you have a film in Sundance?
Okay. Yeah,
Submitted
so
it
I went to
there,
the
or-
Sundance Film Festival this
Right.
past January.
Mhm.
I had been first assistant director on a movie called Lost Holiday that Michael and Thomas Matthews co-wrote and co-directed. So I was there in town for the festival, and when you go to Sundance, you can't get in anywhere. It's like it's kind of like Hollywood made live, like
Not on the list.
it's just a bunch of parties happening and events happening. You can't get in. So I'm texting and calling and emailing everybody I know, and I did get an invite to an event, a party sponsored by a group called Choose Georgia. And when I went to that event, it was great. And there were a lot of people there. It was a big event at Sundance, and they just made an announcement about there's a film fund in Columbus. Some private citizens have all thrown some money into a pot, and if you come here with a movie that's at least $1 million in budget and a movie that has been vetted, the screenplay has been vetted by the Georgia Film Academy, then you can qualify to get 20% of your spend in Muskogee County. We'll just give it back to you in the form of a cash
cool.
investment in your movie. And I'm just like, I'm kind of running the numbers in my head, and I texted my wife and said, look up this website. What is
Yeah.
this? Is this real? And talked to some guys there, and then about a week later, I was here with my team.
So it was a pretty easy process then, from the time you
Yeah,
submitted
yeah.
the script.
Well,
until-
they so the Georgia Film Academy had written a coverage report on my screenplay 2 years ago. There was some movement. We were thinking about doing the movie in Georgia a couple years ago, and so the Georgia Film Academy had read it. And when we got here to Columbus, there's going to be this 6-week waiting around for them to read your screenplay, and they said, "Oh, by the way, your screenplay has been read." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And they loved it. They said it was like the best screenplay they'd read. You got
Wow.
I'm reading the coverage report, and it's really great. So you're just approved. And I was like, "Oh,
That's
well,
too
that's
cool.
so."
Great,
So we
man.
moved.
Wow.
We moved pretty fast
Yeah,
after that.
that's
when
awesome.
we were like, "Oh, well, we have to shoot here."
And how do you like it so far?
I love it. I love it. I mean, I'm fond of my home state, South
Yeah.
Carolina. I'm fond of my hometown, Greenville. Sometimes when I'm here and I talk to people in Columbus and they said, "Oh, you live in Greenville, South Carolina. It's such a great town." And I agree. It is a great town. But there's really no better place in the United States to be making a movie than Georgia if you're a producer. And there's really, in our opinion, there's no better place in Georgia to make a movie than Columbus because of the Georgia tax incentive mixed with the Columbus Film Fund. It's like, I mean, as long as the locations are here, and they are,
Yep.
then why aren't you making your movie here or your
Right.
TV show? It should
I
be
think
here.
I think funding is the thing that holds a lot of people back.
Well,
And the wonderful people. I mean, we're
Yeah.
just so awesome. And it's like,
Yeah.
hey, just come over and hang out. Man.
I mean, seriously,
Do it for
seriously, that's
free.
true. That's true.
Film over here, you can do it for free.
Yeah, we've
I have a
I
house.
could tell you a lot of stories just about that are like that of just kindness, generosity,
Yeah.
friends that just show up and suddenly people are your friends,
Mm-hmm.
and not just. I mean, it's not because I'm some fancy film producer or something. It's because people genuinely care about building an industry here. They like people here working in the film industry, and it's fortunate that we can come in and make a movie that we hope is a big hit next year, and but it's also fortunate that people in this town can work on a movie like that. So when it is a big
Absolutely.
hit, you can say, "Hey, I worked on that
I
movie,"
did
and
that.
yeah, right. And it kind of
Yeah.
goes from there.
So
Grows from-
not only Electric Jesus, you have other projects that are out there getting screened and recognized.
So yeah, my website is chriswhitehq.com. If you're curious about some things I've done, I try to keep that up to date with just projects I've done. But one thing, a short film I wrote and I happen to act in, is called Molly. It's going to be at the Macon
Macon.
Film Festival in a couple weeks, and about the same time it's going to be at Sidewalk in Birmingham. and then a few weeks later, it's going to be in, the Reedy Reels Festival in Greenville, the Tryon Film Festival in Tryon, North Carolina, and Foot Candle Film Festival in North Carolina. It's been at some places already. Atlanta Underground Film Festival. So let me say this about short films versus feature films, right? So short films, and that means like 5 to 10, maybe 15
Up to
minutes
30.
long. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a feature film would be like traditionally anything over, I
An
think it's,
hour.
the Academy says I think it's over 40 minutes. It's a feature.
40
But
minutes, okay.
yeah, a 2-hour movie. Most of the movies you see are features.
Mhm.
So usually people make shorts for no money,
Mhm.
and they don't make any money on them.
No.
They are for experience. They're for maybe testing an idea that you want to become a feature. It'd be like a musician just recording maybe one song.
Mhm.
You know, I wonder if people like this song. If they do, I'll make an album,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And so shorts are made fast, cheap,
Mhm.
cash in all your favors with all your friends. Sometimes people do spend money on them, but it's not a lot.
No.
And with the
Get a bunch of
technology,
interns
Yeah.
work on it.
but
Yeah.
you also, with the technology being what
Yeah.
it is, you know, you can go to Walmart and buy a camera to
Oh, yeah.
shoot a 4K movie.
Mhm.
Your phone, if you
Use
have an
the
iPhone,
iPhone.
it's a
Exactly.
4K camera. I
Mhm.
mean, you can shoot a real movie with it.
Yep.
So short films kind of work like that.
Mhm.
Features really only exist to make money. I mean, the only reason why people would do a feature is to figure out a way to make some money. Film
Right. And
film
just-
is
right.
a profit-driven art form. It's commercially driven.
Yeah.
So with Electric Jesus being a feature,
Mhm.
we're trying to make money. With
Mhm.
Molly, the film that's playing in
Mhm.
Macon, I'm sure the producers, Phyllis and Joshua Jackson, would be happy for someone to give them money for that. But
Yeah.
we're really doing it as, for me, I wrote it because my friend Phyllis wanted to direct,
Mhm.
and I wrote a script for her. And she
Mhm.
was kind enough to ask me to act in it,
Uh-huh.
and my wife to produce it. So,
Cool.
so yeah, but yeah, I would
Mhm.
love for people to come see Molly. I think it's August 14th, maybe 16th. One of those days at Macon.
Mid-August.
And
Yeah.
I did some reading on that, and I think that would probably end up making a really good full-length movie on one of those offbeat situations that do happen to men at certain times in their
Yeah.
lives sometimes, and then you're trying to kind of rediscover and figure everything out, not necessarily by choice, you know.
Molly's
Without
about a
giving
man
away-
who's he decides for various reasons that he's going to buy drugs and try them for the first time. But he has no clue about how to do that. So on some level, the movie is like an extended dad joke. But it also is pretty touching, and it goes to some ideas about grace and what it means to get what you need, not what you want. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some big ideas floating around in Molly, but at its heart,
Mhm.
it's just a big goofy dad joke about some guy trying to buy drugs.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I have a lot of friends that
That
love
can relate to
offbeat,
that.
weird stuff, and not just the thing about Molly, but I've been reading some of your other stuff, like the Southern Goth
Yeah.
films, stuff like that. I am definitely tonight, whenever I get home, I'm going to go through and find everything that I can find on you to watch, because I got a feeling that we've got that, that humor, and my wife is probably not going to quite get it. So in reading some of your stuff and all, and realizing that you're married, and I do a lot of weird stuff that my wife's looking in the backyard going, I don't understand why you even think that's funny. How does she like you being in the industry?
Well, we made a movie a couple years ago called
Yeah.
Cinema Purgatorio, and it's about a filmmaker couple. I play the husband. My wife doesn't act, so another woman played my wife in the movie. But the gist of it is, and I think you guys would really like it, because the idea of it is these people are not making it as filmmakers, and they hear there's this contest, a 48-hour film festival, where you got 48 hours to make a movie. And they hear that Bill Murray is going to be a judge in the festival. Now, Bill Murray happens to live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh.
So we're
know
from
that.
South Carolina. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, it kind of came from this idea of us talking about, well, if we heard that Bill Murray would see our work, even if it was some contest and it cost us a lot of money, and we had to
Right.
cash in a lot, we'd do it because Bill would love us. you know,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and he would discover us and he'd throw money at us. And so it was that fantasy, and we just turned it into a movie. So the whole movie is about this couple trying to make this movie so that Bill Murray will judge it and say they're the winner and love them.
Did you get Bill Murray?
You got to see the movie. Wouldn't that be a spoiler?
I know. I got to see it. It sounds
But
interesting.
I'll say this: making that movie did lead to me meeting Bill Murray.
Cool.
So
That's very cool.
And we'll talk about. I'll tell you that story another
Okay.
time.
Well, Tim, did you have a question about composers?
No,
Oh, okay.
I had said earlier, there's so many. I'm just learning the intricate parts of the movie making things. I met you guys, and of course you have the writing, and the acting and so forth. And I just got interesting in the musical score is usually kind of takes the emotion
Right.
of the scene.
Yeah, and I'll say this to you as a composer. So music is tough for me because I love music.
Right.
And I love movie scores, not just songs, but when I make a movie, I spend so much time writing it, so much time filming it, so much time with the actors getting just the right thing, getting the edit just right, that a lot of times my first pass through a movie with music,
Right.
even just dummied in score, it kills the whole movie for me. It becomes too sweet, too emotional. It's like, why is that
Yeah, you
guitar
can't
playing
watch it
right now?
now.
I mean, we work so hard to get it to
That's it.
work, and it
Yeah.
does work dramatically, and now somebody's playing piano? Oh, this is so cheesy. So it takes me a second to back off of that in my own work and say, okay, let music do what music does. It's a tool in the toolbox, and it helps us understand things about movies, especially when you're making a movie about music. The songs the guys play in the movie, they have a function of being the songs the guys play in the movie. But they're also telling you something. They're revealing something about characters and about the story.
Yeah.
So they're very useful. In fact, one of the main, the power ballad that the band in the movie plays, I think I can tell you this here. I don't know we've told anybody this, but the song is called Girl, in parentheses, I Love Jesus Too. So it's a power ballad where a teenager is saying, oh my gosh, I love you so much, but don't worry, I love Jesus too. It's just not going to get too hot and
That's
heavy.
great.
I'm also a
funny.
Christian, but oh girl, you're hot. So that's the whole idea of the song is that, right?
Yeah.
But the melody that Daniel Smith wrote to go with that song is such a great melody.
Is it
And
a slow
it's
song?
it's a power ballad.
A power, yeah.
Yeah. But in the movie, the melody from that song comes out of the song, and the melody becomes kind of almost like a love theme for the movie.
Yeah.
So you
it's
hear it in a
exciting.
totally different way, and to close listeners of the movie, you'll be like, "Hey, that's that girl song." That's kind of a cheesy Christian rock song when
Yeah.
they play it,
Uh-huh.
but then at this moment, I'm starting to cry because of what's happening, and that music's playing underneath. So it's that is definitely by design.
Well, what's so fascinating to me is, guys, I'm getting along in age, and my hearing is not what it was a long time ago. But the more I watch, whether it be on the small screen, of course, television, or on the large screen at the cinema, if you take a song and some great acting and some great writing, and just do it right, and I don't even have to listen any longer because they just intertwine, and I really don't even have to hear what's going on. I can actually just feel and view it and feel it, and it's just absolutely
Right.
amazing how that
Wow,
works.
that's cool. That's very cool. And that again, you said that you're having some trouble hearing, or but you can still see the screen and you hear enough
Right.
that you I know where we are in the story, and I know what this character feels, and that is what score does in a movie. But again, as the guy guiding those actors and working so hard to get it just right, the first time I hear music, I'm like, no music, it's messing it up.
Yeah. I guess
Anything else?
That's all
I
right.
don't know. I'm actually starstruck, so
Yeah.
I've been a little quieter than usual because after I got to reading all your stuff, I was like, wow, I can really get into this weirdness here. So
Let me say this. I want to say this just because I know there are a lot of filmmakers in Columbus, Georgia, people who are trying to break into film as writers and directors of photography, and some people that are working maybe professionally as a production company, and they shoot industrial commercial videos, or actors that want to be in real movies and TV shows, and this is very similar to where I live in Greenville, and I would just say that that's how we came up. That's how Emily, my wife, and I kind of came through this. About 10 years ago, we decided this is something we're going to pursue, and we don't just want to do it as a hobby. We want to do it. We want to make money at it. We want, not that there's anything wrong with doing it as a hobby. You could approach filmmaking like you might approach community theater. You know, that's just something I love to do, and I love being with friends that do it. And I'm
Being
not trying to be on.
creative.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be on
Yeah.
Broadway,
Right.
but so and there is an approach to making films the same way. Just go out with your friends, have fun, make movies. Our ambition was different. We were trying to get to where we could actually get paid doing it and sell things and help investors make money and all that. And
That's the marketing side of you, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, but I just want to say, if that's something that you're interested in, if you're trying to make it your business and your life, I want to encourage you and say, yes, do it. I also want to. This is not a discouragement. I hope it's not a discouragement. I don't know how we did what we did. I don't know how we got here making this movie. Like I mean, I know the things that happened, but I don't know how to turn that into something, a good, tidy lesson for you. If you do this, and then you do this, then you'll do this, and then you'll make it. It's different
just
for
happen.
everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's.
Organic.
I will say this: the thing that has been consistent for the 10 years is we kept trying to get a little bit better at what we were doing, and kept trying to work with people that were smarter than us and more experienced than us and better than find actors who were even better, find camera people that were better. A lot of times I feel like if I'm the smartest person in the room, then I need to be in another room. I need to be around people that are better than me, because how am I going to get any better?
Yeah.
If
Improve and
I'm
learn.
the king, so I'm not.
Yeah.
So a lot of Electric Jesus is just the same thing as it was when we did Good Life, the short film that stars my daughter Harriet. Look that up, Good Life. It's really good. It really stands up, and it's something we just did on the cheap for like $100 10 years ago. But that movie was me trying to find people that knew how to do stuff that I didn't.
Right.
And Electric Jesus is the same thing. I'm trying to get around people that are smarter, better, actors that are just awesome.
Yeah.
Something that we've talked about a couple of times on the show, and we're hoping that in Columbus that this will happen with us, is that one of the things that was brought up to me of why movie companies kept wanting to come to Columbus was because a guy named Joel Rodriguez, on a movie that me and Ginger was working on, I'd asked him, and he said, it's because every time I turn a corner I meet somebody that's so creative and they don't even know it. He said, so it makes it easier for us to be able to do what we're trying to do on a smaller budget with a lot of creative people, and I'm hoping that you'll experience that while you're here. But being creative, like you said, making a short, $100, and it probably looks like $1 million, because I imagine that you're extremely creative. Anybody that can write this movie that your Electric Jesus has got to be out there, way out there, in an awesome way, okay? But that's one of the things with Tim that we've discussed, is that creativity with a little bit of money goes a lot further than a lot of money and no creativity.
Yeah.
It really does, and it's depressing to hear it when you're in the middle of it, and you're like, if I only had $1,000, I could do this and this, and the answer that comes back is, we don't have $1,000. You just
Yeah,
have
make it work.
You still have to do it, and
Yeah.
it wears you out after a while.
Right.
But I promise you, if you continue and you continue to improve and you continue to work with people that are, better than you, eventually there will be people around you. It's happened to me this week, where I'm around people who are investors in my movie, putting money, their hard-earned money in my movie, and the reason they're doing it is because I've demonstrated over time that I get the job done, I do the work, I work as hard as anybody, and I can get people around me that are just more connected, better than I am. Because I
That's
can't
great.
do this. Chris White can't make
Yeah.
any of this stuff, but our team working together can.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, it being a team.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people realize that that you're never going to, how should I say this? You're never going to make it. You're never going to be at the top. You're always going to have something to learn. And there's an old saying that is, the journey is the reward. And that's very true, because as you go down the road, whichever way you go, it's absolutely amazing. You learn more every day. And from every person that you interact with, you learn something, and you just add that knowledge to you. And it's just like Chris said, the next year, boom, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just, a lot further than you were.
There's it's from our film Cinema Purgatorio, and this quote that we wrote comes up at the end of the movie, and it's as much for us, the filmmakers, as it is for the people that watch it. But the line is, quit trying to make it, you've already got it made. And
Cool.
really what that means is, in relationship, that's what's actually important. If I drop dead tomorrow, you're not going to go watch all my movies. My
Yeah.
children are going to be, my wife,
Right.
my relationships, those are be the way I'm remembered. I mean, somebody might politely watch Good Life, or, oh, that poor guy died. Yeah, that was cute.
What he's all about.
But what I leave behind is the relationships and that I build with
Yeah.
friends and family and all that. So, sometimes us artists and filmmakers, creative types, we got to be reminded of that. What really matters is the friends you make along the way, and as you say, the journey that goes there. Because if making Electric Jesus is just horrible, I mean, we might get a movie at the end of it, but we would never want to make another one again, right? We would never
I
want to
don't
work
think
with
that would
each
work.
other again, and it
No.
would just be, man, how depressing would that be?
I know it would be, but I don't think that would happen.
And that's when we
We were
started.
like
When we
trapped
started the
between
show,
two
that's
Yodas.
something that that's something that I always wanted to do. Was we started off doing a lot of musicians, and you can go to let's say a bar, whatever, and pay $5 and see that persona. But my intention when I started the show was I wanted to get to know the artist behind the art, or the art behind the artist, maybe is what I should say. What makes them tick? What makes them do what they do? And
Right.
I saw a thing the other day, and it's actually on our page, on our Facebook page, but it had this small child that was in a third world country or whatever, and he had actually put himself an entire drum set. He had taken trash cans and trash lids or whatever, and I had put something to the effect of, it's an example, creativity can never be stifled. And it just amazed me.
Yeah.
This is true. You cannot snuff out somebody's creativity, their invention, their making. You can't stop me from doing that. I can go to Home Depot with a $20 bill in my pocket, and I can come up with a project. Well, we were talking about mowing the grass. I love mowing the grass because that's something that's just done. Like I spend so much of my time
Yeah.
not making things, but when I mow the grass, look at that. Look at what I did.
Yeah.
So,
That easy.
but what you can't do, what you can lose, or what can be taken away from you, is the community, the relationships, the friendships, the love that we have for each other while we're making it. Because that actually matters, And why would you do this impossibly difficult? Just it's really hard. You've been in our production office. So the things we do, they're fun, they're cool, but they're also really tedious and hard,
Yeah.
and they're expensive, and things don't go right every day.
Right.
I'll tell you guys this. There's a line in the movie where we quote a Motley Crue song, where a preacher's preaching a message, and he says lines from a Motley Crue song. It's kind of funny because they're a little obscene, and he's kind of preaching against it. Well, I found out yesterday that Nikki Sixx of Motley Crue said we could not use those words in our movie.
Oh.
We, something about the context or the movie,
Wow.
something about it. Nikki Sixx said you can't use our words.
Yeah.
So I gotta go back. I gotta rewrite that scene.
gotta
I gotta
rewrite
find an
it.
artist that
Gotta
will let me
change it.
use their lines, or maybe I'll just
uh-huh.
make up some obscene
Yeah,
lyrics
make
or
up
something.
something.
But it's really disappointing. It's like, come
Yeah.
on, Motley Crue, live up
I
to
know.
your movie that says you're,
He was married to Donna D'Errico.
Donna
She was
D'Errico from here. Yeah.
'cause he
Oh,
came
wow.
to Columbus
Okay.
one time.
Yeah, he's
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, he
Yeah,
said
yeah,
no,
yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
that's a
Uh-huh.
obstacle to me making my
Right.
movie now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have a pretty famous actor coming to town, who's going to speak those lines. Now I got to rewrite that guy's monologue.
Well, let's go see if maybe the Bullet Boys. What are they doing? They had some pretty obscene lyrics.
Yeah, there's plenty of obscene lyrics out there. So
Yeah.
we'll go back into and we're doing
Rat,
going back.
Rat'll be all about it. I mean,
Yeah,
Kiefer's
their
doing a new
lyrics are
album.
kinda dumb.
Yeah.
Motley Crue, they were kind of clever. They were dirty, but they were kind of clever.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, that's a challenge. We'll get past that challenge, but
Yeah.
we're doing it with friends and people that care, and bringing people into that into our world that care too, and that's really what's important, I think.
And you know what? Speaking of people that care and getting together, first of all, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely,
I do appreciate
man.
that.
Yeah, that was.
I'm
great.
here
so
for
much.
another 6 or 7 weeks, so if I got time, I'll be back. I love your place. This is
yay.
amazing.
And there was a question that I was going to ask you because me and Tim were cutting grass today. I was going to ask you if a guy like Chris White cuts his own grass, and you answered it anyways. While you're here, if you get homesick and you want to come cut grass,
I do.
Dude, I have a
I do.
lawnmower and everything. I have a handyman service. I could pimp you out.
Yeah, I was telling Ginger when my son, from like age 11 or 12, whenever he started mowing grass, when he graduated high school and I let him off the hook, I was so bored. Like, I would be like, I kind of wanted to mow
So
the grass.
useless.
But I was teaching him, you got to learn to mow the grass. But I do, man. And I like getting sometimes you just make some diagonals and just make it look pretty.
Dude, listen, I gave you my card. I gave you the handyman
Okay,
card
got
at the
it.
thing. You call me up any day that you get stressed out.
Right.
I will come and pick you up in my minivan. All right,
Right.
and we will cruise
Make
this
sure
town.
I have your info.
Yeah.
You don't believe me? I will take you up on that.
Oh, I follow y'all every
On
day.
your days off, you're gonna go be working with the handyman. Here.
Absolutely. So you guys stay tuned because Chris White may be working with me.
Yeah, make that
and
a Facebook
Lady-
Live. Just like, hey, look, the director's mowing my yard.
So hopefully between the next couple of weeks we'll have Chris White Part 2, and he's got so many things to talk about, and he can
Yeah.
just continue from there.
If you're on Facebook and you're curious about Electric Jesus, you can follow the Facebook page, and they're also on Instagram as
And just
Jesus
Film.
Mhm.
So facebook.com/eJesusFilm or instagram.com/eJesusFilm or even twitter.com.
Yeah.
And then we have a website that's electricjesusfilm.com, and you can put your info in there, just your contact info, and we'll let you know about things like extras and things like that. Things happening with the movie, we'll let you know that information. We're building a mail list for that. So.
All right. We want to give a shout out to Darlena. Darlena is our third host. She wasn't able to make it today. She had to work. But
Yeah.
between Ginger and Darlena, we one more time want to say congratulations on a very successful mixer that they
Awesome
put on
event.
last
Oh.
weekend.
Thank you.
And with
Good
that,
times.
we're going to go ahead and get out of here unless anybody has anything else.
Yeah.
Thank you, Columbus.
I wanted to tell my wife and kids to have a safe trip to North Carolina, and I'll be here whenever they get back. So
There you go.
And thank you, Chris, for being here.
Thank
It was
you
a
so much.
pleasure, an honor, man. I'm so excited we got to meet you. So.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Everyone
Jen.
have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.